Hi Year 5, I hope you're all keeping safe and doing well. I just wanted to give you a short video on how to write a non-chronological report, and this is to help you with your report on the Maya. So, a non-chronological report. The whole purpose of a non-chronological report is to describe something factual, the way things are, tells you what something is or was. So in this case, we're going to be writing in past tense because we're talking about a historical time and we're talking about the ancient Maya, and we're going to be giving our reader some facts about what daily life was like for them. So the first step is to think about the structure of your report. Now, you always start your non-chronological report with an opening statement or an introduction. And here's when you need to think about your 5 W's. Who are you writing about? Well, in this case, the ancient Maya. What is it, or what was it used for? Well, it was a very, very important time in history. Where is it found? Well, actually, it's found in Mesoamerica, which is in the South and Central America. And when was it found? You also need to include a quick description of what the topic is and some facts about it. So for instance, when we go to our planning, you can see you use a range of sources for your information, and for your sources, I would just like to show you some of the ones that I have put links on or included in your learning pack. So this is the Ancient Maya book that I included in the pack, and it's got some facts about their farming and some of the important things that they grew, and also about some of their fishing skills. It also includes some work on clothing and their fashion, as well as their beauty. What did they look like? And on topics that you've probably already read about, such as the gods and their religion. You also have some facts on their writing, and at the beginning of the book, it just gives you some idea of where the ancient Mayas were based. And you can see here it's around Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras and Belize, as well as some other countries. And you can also see that you have some dates. So you have 2000 BC to around 1500 AD, and that's round about when the ancient Maya civilization lived. And it gives you an idea of some of the reasons we might find them interesting, that they were highly advanced with certain skills, and some of the things that they built, which you can still see in Central America today. So that's included in your home learning pack and on the website. In your English pack, I've given you some links to websites. Here you have the Duxter's website, which I know we've used a lot. It talks about different parts of society, talks about the clothing, the food they ate, what their homes were like. And it's got some interesting facts about the entertainment and general little facts about their life. The other site, this is the DK Find Out site. And this is really nice because it's all split up, and if you click, if you wanted to do some work on Mayan arts and crafts, you can click on it and it gives you some information and then takes you to the page where it's got a lot more detailed information and might give you the idea of some diagrams or drawings that you might want to include in your work. And I've got another site here, which is just a site that I quickly found that has some information on how to build a house. So as you can see, I've used different types of information to help me with my work there. If we go back to the plan, you need to make sure your work's planned in paragraphs, which is something that we've been doing all the way through years 3, 4 and 5, so I'm sure you'll have no problem with that. Remember, every time you change the topic of what you're talking about, you can change to a different paragraph. When you're doing your plan, it's helpful to write in notes. And again, this is something you should all be doing because it is important to have a plan so you can focus your energy when you're writing on certain aspects, and it stops you from skipping any success criteria or forgetting what you need to include. And you can also select facts from a range of sources. So I've shown you a book, and I've also shown you some information from the internet. DK Find Out is a site that actually writes a lot of educational books about history and science topics for children your age. And it is really, really important that when you do this, your planning and your facts are correct. So what I've got next is just a quick example of a spider diagram that I've included. So I can see in the middle that this topic is about the everyday life of the Maya. I've written it as a question. Okay, so that kind of gives you the idea that I'm going to answer that question within my article. I've got my introduction here, which looks at the 5 W's. Who am I writing about? The ancient Maya. What exactly am I writing about? Their everyday life. Where were they based? And then I've named in more detail the countries that they were based in Central America and southern and northern and southern Mexico. I've also included when they thrived, which was between 250 AD and 900 AD. This is when they were kind of at their peak, but it would have started round about 800 BC. Why am I writing about them? What is the point in writing about the ancient Maya? Well, actually, they thrived for a very long time and in the process made significant progress in many areas. And it began with farming, where they would grow corns and beans, and eventually they went on to build the pyramids and great cities. And this is a nice way to lead in to what this article is going to be about. I might add another bullet point on there, which would include that this article is going to focus on homes, food and farming, and crafts. Now, I would expect all of you to include 3 areas. If you would like to include more, because I know that there was lots of ideas given in the work, please feel free to do so. And what I've done here is I've got a modelled version of the notes I've taken for the homes section. So I would have homes as the heading for this section. I would then have some subheadings. I've decided on the subheadings based upon the different areas I'm going to write about. So I'm going to write about how the walls are constructed in a home. They've got an oval rock foundation. They've got supporting wood posts are added to keep the structure upright, and smaller trees are nailed to the frame. And normally these smaller trees are cut down with machetes. And sometimes mud and clay are mixed with grass and added to the walls as a plaster. But this would mainly be for some of the more noble members of the group. So that I would write is probably one paragraph, and I could use the subheading walls. I might pose that as a question to keep the reader interested. Okay, how were the walls of a house constructed? I've then got some more information here about the roof. So typically there's one main house for a family. A separate house is used for cooking. And normally the typical house, the main house, is the room where they would sleep and rest in. The houses are an oval shape. The roof is thatched, called palapa, which is made of grass and palm, and it normally lasts about 8 to 20 years. Now, the reason the houses are oval is because if the house was square, the thatch wouldn't join up very easily and it would create gaps and the roof would leak. So one of the reasons the house was an oval shape as opposed to a square rectangular shape was so the thatch could be continuous and overlap and stop leaks from getting in. I then have information about another fact about how the oval shape would help the house stand up to strong winds. And in the area of Central and Southern America, you have sometimes hurricanes, which would have very strong winds and could cause damage to the house. And one theory of thought is that the oval houses would be a bit more safe and would stand up to the winds better. I've then got my third part, which I could have as a subheading. Or what I might want to do is I might combine these two parts and have the exterior of the house or structure of the house, and then have this one with a separate subheading of inside the house and include my facts that I found. I would then repeat this process, finding facts about the food and farming and the crafts. And then my last section would be the conclusion. And in your conclusion, what you want to say what you found out. So you might say that you found out lots of interesting things, how the houses were built. And you might go back to this fact and say, the Maya had a great knowledge of what was going of the world around them and understood that the weather could affect their houses, so they built them in a way to make it safer. You might want to pick out the most interesting fact you have found. This might be something about one of the products that they used to farm. And then what you want to do is, what are they remembered for? Well, actually, they're remembered for many different things. They're remembered for their pyramids. They're remembered for their farming, their way of life. They're remembered for their craft products, such as the Mayan masks, which we made a few weeks ago. Now, once I've planned my article, you need to start writing your report. And these are some of the success criteria you need to include. There should be headings and subheadings. You should have simple, clear titles. And tempt the reader using questions. So you might want to use your questions as a subheading or as a heading, and then answer it within your work. Use short sentences, make them clear and get straight to the point. With this, it's also important to include fronted adverbials. And if you go back to the report, you can see I've highlighted and read as I've went some of the fronted adverbials I've took notes in that might be worth using in my article. I've got sometimes, usually and typically. You also want to think about including lots of historical words related to the Maya, such as the names for their thatched roof. You might come up with some interesting names of the foods they farmed. You might find the name in English and then in their own language. So you might put their own language in your work and then use brackets to write what it means in English. And I would like to see some diagrams and images in your work. You could draw an image of a Mayan home and label it. You might want to draw an image of some of the fruits and vegetables that they farmed. You might want to include a section that has images of a Mayan mask and label the significance of each part. And then once you've done it, once you've done your work, you've written your conclusion, please reread your work to make sure that everything is factual, make sure everything is organised well, that your sentences make sense. You've got capital letters, full stops, commas, brackets, question marks, all in the correct place. And remember, this is a non-chronological report, so it should be written in the past tense. It should be written in third person. Include lots of vocabulary words related to the topic, and should have a very clear view of what everyday life was like for the Mayas. Now, I hope this has helped you. I'm going to now let you get on with your work. I look forward to receiving the emails. I know myself and Mr. Lancaster are really excited when we see how much work you're doing at home and the standard you're doing it to, because it is really great to see. Thank you.